So good morning, everyone. Today, I want to share 7 different ways or things that we can do to change or improve our businesses. Really important as we kickstart the year. We're now in the month of February. The first month is gone, it's past us, and we're into the second month already. But I'm also mindful that for many of us, we tend to start a little slowly. It's great to have New Year's plans and strategies, which ideally should be developed in the last quarter at the latest of the previous year, so that we've got things in place, we've got things in motion, we've got things geared up, we're ready to go, so that when the new year comes, we start off strong. But reality hits, doesn't it? Life hits. Procrastination hits. There's a whole host of different things that knock us sideways and get us a little bit off track. And the challenge with that is we tend to, especially with some New Year's plans, is we tend to go, I've started late, so I won't start. Have you seen people in your team do things like that? Or maybe it's just a bit too late to get going. The moment's passed. The moment has never passed. That's one of the virtues of a 7-day week, or a 24-hour day. Every day we wake up, we've got a new start. I heard someone once say, "You made your bed, you lie in it," is a statement we've all heard. But the truth is, we can all remake our beds. Yeah. So if you've made your bed and you're thinking you're having to lie in it for the rest of the year or for the next little while, not true. You can remake your bed. You can start afresh. So even if we're in the month of February and you're feeling a little bit behind, don't panic. We've got plenty of time ahead of us. And the reality is, a new year is really symbolic. There's nothing more than that, because you can have a fresh start and a new beginning every day, any week of any month of any year. It doesn't have to begin in January. So with that being said, hopefully, if you're ready to get going and you're looking for ways to start, let's share some things that we can do now that can help us to get going. And I'm going to share some principles here that are designed to help anyone that's listening know what to do next. Okay, so point number 1 is do something, anything. Often, one of the challenges when we feel we've gotten stuck and we don't know where to start, we don't do anything. We freeze. And we've often said that in our business, haven't we? Is that when we feel uncertainty or unsurety, people don't do anything. They stop taking action. They freeze, they wait, they panic, or they wait for some type of clarity to profoundly, remarkably just distill upon their soul, like the dews from heaven that will just appear out of somewhere and then give them clarity and perspective, and then they get going again. That's not the right way forward. The best way to start is simply to start, to pick something and to do it. Now you might go, okay, well, what should I pick? What should I do? If you were to take a brief moment, just a few minutes, and say, get a pad and paper out, a pad and a pen, and say, I'm going to write down the top 5 things that I think I need to do in my business. I guarantee you, without having to brainstorm a lot of things, your own conscience, as you look at your own business, will immediately dictate to you what some of those first steps should be. Yeah. So I'm confident if we just take the moment and say, okay, what are the top 5 things that I should be doing in my business right now? And you write them down, pick one of them and do it today. Just get started. That to me has a profound opportunity for us to improve our businesses. And what I would also suggest, if you really want to be strong, if you really want to make a difference, pick the thing that is most uncomfortable for you and get it done. Now, why do I say that? I have found that there are certain tasks in my Nikken business that I love to do. And there are other tasks that I don't enjoy so much. Do you have your favorite list of things that you like to do in Nikken? Maybe some of them you've turned into a hobby horse, yeah? And now you make your whole business all about it. And then we get a little bit of imbalance because we tend to put aside the things that we don't like doing. The reality is the unpleasant things often are some of the most necessary. But if we put it off, if we procrastinate that, what happens is the icky feeling that we get of the task that we don't enjoy sticks with us until it gets done. It doesn't go away, especially if we are deliberately focusing on building our business. If I want to bury my head in the sand and be an ostrich and get rid of that feeling by simply trying to avoid it, then I'm going to end up avoiding a whole lot of other stuff. Yeah. So if I can lean into the thing that I find uncomfortable, get that done first, here's the glorious thing. That icky feeling then goes away. You've got the rest of the day to feel wonderful. And this is important for a big reason, for two big reasons. One, it gets the uncomfortable things done, and that's important. The second thing is, if we don't do it first and we allow the uncomfortable feelings to reside with us all day or all week or all month, if we're really great at procrastinating, then what happens over time is, as I think about building my Nikken business, those emotions are the first things that come to mind. And emotion, the word emotion, comes from that Latin word motare, which means to move us to action. The purpose of our emotions is to move us to action. So if we have these uncomfortable, unpleasant feelings that we're feeling all the time because we're procrastinating doing that critical task, then what tends to happen is we will associate those negative feelings with our Nikken business. We don't want that, because what that then tends to do is has a knock-on effect that makes you go, I don't think I'll do my Nikken business because it makes me feel uncomfortable. You see the consequence of that? Bob, you've raised your hand. Do you want to unmute your line and share a thought?
Yeah, well, you and I have talked about this before about procrastination.
Yeah.
And I listened to a webcast the other day of two gentlemen from Cloga Falls, where we live. One owns a digital marketing company, and the other one is a motivational speaker. And most people think of procrastination as a bad thing. And their whole talk was procrastination is really a good thing.
Yeah.
And because it gives you time to sit back and recalculate, rethink, learn a new skill, all kinds of things. And people think you're procrastinating, but you're just really not ready to move forward.
Mm.
So that, I thought it was a pretty interesting talk, and
Yeah.
I know you and I've talked about procrastination before, so I just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, I think that's really good. There is a huge amount of relevance in what Bob just said there, where it's worthwhile for us, one, to do the uncomfortable thing, get it done first, but then also take some time for reflection, introspection, to evaluate, why does this cause me pain? Why is it uncomfortable? Is there some underlying belief or fear that I have around that activity that I need to confront in some way? Because it's not always about doing the unpleasant things. Sometimes it's about learning from it and seeing how we can turn something uncomfortable into something more manageable and more pleasant. Yeah. And it's certainly true that the more experience we get with a certain activity, the more proficient we become, the more enjoyable it becomes. Why? Because when we start to get good at something, we start to get passionate about it. Yeah. If you're signed up to the newsletter that I put out each week, it's worthwhile taking a listen to the TED talk that was in the last newsletter. It was talking about this really profound truth that we're often taught to follow our passions. And she says, don't do that. It's backwards. Our passions follow us. Yeah. And it's really true. Passion follows success. If you want to get passionate about something, be successful at something. I was rubbish at maths when I was at school. And as a consequence of that, it was my least favorite subject. But I loved art and music. And I think one of the reasons that I loved it was because I was good at it. And because I was good at it and I loved it, I got better because I enjoyed the process. Whereas with maths, I just couldn't invest myself in it. I just found it absolutely miserable. So it's interesting that what we need to recognize that passion follows success. If you want to get passionate about something, simply strive to get good at it. Yeah, so find a skill that you're going, I need to get better at this, work on it and get some practice, get some wins behind you. And after you get some wins behind you, you'll go, actually, this is okay. And the simple psychology behind that is It's because you're starting to get good at it. Yeah. We all like what we're good at. So there's something there to consider, and taking some time to reflect and have some moments of introspection around that as well, so that you can make some adjustments there. Point number 2, after getting started and just picking something to do, recognize that everything that you do has a cost. Our task is to be willing to pay it. The important question is this. First of all, if you want to be happy, there's a price to be paid, isn't there? Happiness doesn't just appear on our doorstep as a free gift. But we have to work at it in order to be happy. If we want to be successful, if we want to have a great business, there's a price to be paid, isn't there? There is always a price associated with what you want. So the question doesn't come down to, well, what do I want? That's often where we go first. Let's sit down and just strategize for a minute and plan. What should my goal be? What do I really want? That's not the question to ask. The question that you want to ask is this: what am I willing to suffer for? That's the real question. What am I willing to suffer for? We all want a lot of things in life, but we're not willing to suffer for them all. Yeah? As a consequence, some things remain pipe dreams, fantasies, wishes, hopes, or aspirations, but nothing else, nothing more, because we aren't truly willing to suffer for it. I know, for example, I'm willing to suffer at great lengths for the happiness and well-being of my children. As a consequence, I have great confidence that I can create an environment for them that will be a strong foundation for them to develop happiness and well-being in their lives. Because my wife and I constantly want to teach, constantly want to train, constantly want to support, nurture, encourage, facilitate, and provide an environment for them to grow in a healthy way. And we'll pay whatever price is necessary for that. That becomes a primary priority in our lives. What about your business? What are you willing to suffer for in your business? What price are you willing to pay for your own success? If you want to get Club Ki this quarter and every quarter, if you want to get onto Team Kaizen in 2022, what price are you willing to pay? What are you willing to suffer in order to get that? We need to know that specifically, and then know, is it enough? Because one thing that I have found in my pursuit of excellence and success and getting on achieving Club Ki and getting on Team Kaizen, but what I found is at the beginning, especially if you're doing it for the first time, we go, I anticipate I'll need to suffer this much. It's going to hurt me this much to get what I want. And then those that have done it are smiling because they know the truth of the matter is when you experience it, it's more than you're expecting. Yeah. There's a bigger price to be paid than what you initially thought. Don't you think that's true? Haven't you found that with anything excellent that you've achieved in life? That when it comes to the crunch, what you thought you had to pay the price, what the price was that you thought you had to pay, it's actually a little bit more. So keep that in mind. What am I willing to suffer for, and how much? Do I want it enough? There's nothing more frustrating than being willing to suffer 90% of the total price. That's the worst thing ever. 90% suffering versus the full amount means you don't quite get it, but you do get to suffer. That sucks, doesn't it? That sucks. It means you're climbing the mountain to get to the top, but you don't quite have it in you to get all the way to the summit. So what happens? You struggle, and then you slide back down. And then you go, okay, I'm going to do it this time. And then you suffer 90%. You get almost there. And then you slide back down. Be willing to pay the full price because it gets you over the hump. It gets you to the peak. It gets you to the summit. If you're willing to pay just a little bit less, then you endure the suffering, the journey, and none of the fruits. We've got to be willing to go the distance. Okay, so big question. Not what do I want? What am I willing to suffer for? Point number 3, and this is an interesting one. Embrace the fact that no one really cares. Now you might go, hey, wait a second. That doesn't sound too nice at all. Let me give you 2 ways of saying this. You can go, And why don't people really care what you're doing? Well, for one simple reason. They're preoccupied with caring about what they're doing. Most people are focused on themselves. It's not until you get to a really great place in life where you've really mastered yourself and you've overcome your own demons that you're in a great place to care more about others first. That's the critical thing, isn't it? That in order to get to that point where we can care for others first, we've got to have conquered something in ourselves beforehand. There's got to have been that personal self-mastery element that gets us there. Yeah. So most people, the reality is, are wading through their own mess, struggling with their own stuff. So they don't care too much in reality about what you're doing. Now, you might go, that doesn't sound very nice. You can say it in two ways. You can go, oh, no one really cares. I'm not sure how I feel about that. And woe is me. Or you can go, wait a second. No one cares? Doesn't that open you up now to a whole world of possibility? What would you do if you realized no one really cared? Would you have more confidence? Would you be less fearful of failure? Would you be less fearful of making a fool of yourself, putting yourself out there, trying to do something new and different? We would, wouldn't we? We'd be like, oh, I'm open for trying more things. So embrace the truth in a glorious way, in a positive way. No one really cares. It's okay. Now, someone had their hand up. Who had their hand up and then pulled it down? Yeah, Yoko, unmute your line. What did you want to say?
I was just going to say, when you talk about family and you talk about no one cares, I have been sharing the gift of Nikken for quite a while. And then my kids, my sons, who are now, 50, have noticed in the last decade that I personally have changed. So like you say, it's an evolution in ourself, in addition to our business and our place in what we're doing. But the point is that others do see, and when your family sees it, that's a wonderful thing, because it makes me feel good that I'm not the same person.
Yeah, exactly. And that's an interesting thing, isn't it? That in time, people will, when they see the results, they'll care a little bit. Yeah. It's a little bit like that story about the hen that wanted to bake the bread and no one wanted to help. Yeah. And then eventually when the bread was made, everyone wanted to share it. So, oh, wait a second. No one wanted to share. No one wanted to make it in the first place. Yeah. And that's kind of a metaphor for us in the way that we build ourselves in our lives. Yeah. Is, well, we're in that construction journey on ourselves and our souls. In that process, there aren't too many people that get invested. It's really a personal task. But when we start to achieve and get results and start to become, and we are transformed and changed, then people get interested. Yeah. So you got to recognize there is a lag measure that happens there. There is a lagging effect where those that you're wanting to impress or to influence or to bring along with you, they'll tend to come along a little later versus straight away. And that's okay. We've got to recognize that's part of the journey. That's part of reality. We can get there. Okay, point number 4, focus more on habits and less on goals. Goals are important, right? But sometimes I think they can be overrated, because the reality is, in order to achieve our goals, something needs to happen beforehand. And that is, we need to develop the right daily habits. Yeah, because it's our daily actions that will determine what we get and what we achieve and what we become. So it's really centered on that. A lot of us can sit down and write down a SMART goal and something that's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time sensitive, and go, yeah, I can map that out. But most people don't achieve them. True? Most people will write down those goals and feel really smart about it, feel really good, and go, this is really specific. It feels great. It looks good. And then 2 months later, where you at? I've not really changed much. Yeah. Why? Because the daily habits that we have developed or not developed are what's really at play. If you really want those goals realized, we've got to make sure that we develop some meaningful daily habits and get them working to our advantage. What we find then is when our daily habits are being worked on and improved and developed, then our goals start to take care of themselves. Okay, they start to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Point number 5. So with that, I would say, well, what are some daily habits that you need to change right now? And add that phrase deliberately, right now. Yeah, when you put some urgency to it, what that does is it helps to establish some priorities. Because if I was to say to you, what are some daily habits that you need to work on or improve or develop, you might give me a list of 10 different things. You don't want a list of 10 different things. You want 1 or 2. That's it. So what do I need to change, or what daily habits do I need to develop right now? And that right now will sift out the other 8 and leave you a critical 1 or 2 that will make a difference. Okay, so make sure you use that term right now. What do I need to do? And that will give you some eye-opening moments. Number 5, this is an important one. Figure out who you really are. This is where HBM becomes really important. And I want to give a shout out right now to the next live HBM in Atlanta in March. Reach out to Sherry Danzig, participate, come along. I went to the last one in December. It was absolutely amazing. I've seen Jeff do the HBM a number of times. I'm sure a lot of you have as well. That was the best one I think I've ever experienced. He is just getting better and better. He really is. What he did was incredible. It was masterful. And so if you really want to reconnect with who am I, what am I about, what motivates me, why does it motivate me, why do I do what I do, why do I not do what I do, what is getting in the way of me? Yeah, an HBM experience might help you to figure that stuff out. But it's really important because self-awareness is something that ironically is kind of lacking a lot in the world today, isn't it? There's a lot of absence of self-awareness, and instead it is replaced with self-delusion. There are so many people in the world that are deluded versus self-aware. Yeah, and all of us can take a piece of that in some way, shape, or form, but I think that HBM stuff really helps to pull that out, to eliminate the self-delusion, the self-doubt, the self-fear, and replace it with confidence and perspective and self-awareness. I want to just read out some of the chat comments here because there's some good stuff being said. So yeah, Barbara Richmond said, doing the worst first builds confidence. Really true. Sherry said, how we feel is everything to determine our success. Really spot on there as well, isn't it? How we feel. And if you want to change how you feel, don't wait for the feeling to change. Do something, take action, and then the feeling will change. Yeah. So don't wait for that feeling to become different. Make it different by doing something now. Barbara Richmond said, again, that TED talk was fabulous. Again, and Jeannie said the same thing. I love that TED talk. Mrs. Kramer said, look at the ROI, return on investment, rather than the cost. If something produces a low ROI, then it really isn't worth the investment. That's really sharp. I like that, Mrs. Kramer. Very, very true. So don't necessarily look at the pain point, look at the return. What will it give you if I get this done and I do it consistently? That's a great way to look at it. And then Sherry said, of course, we're halfway filled with the HBM already. We've got a cap at 50. So if you don't want to miss out, let's be sure to jump on that and reach out to Sherry sooner rather than later. Point number 6, we've got just a couple left. Point number 6, focus on fewer things and getting really, really good at them. We have this culture today, which I think is breeding a greater amount of anxiety, stress, worry, depression, and just emotional instability that is just, you know, we talk about this pandemic with COVID. I think there is another pandemic that is existing here in terms of mental well-being. And that anxiety and stress and worry that more and more people are feeling comes from this overriding message that society is giving us that you can do it all. And as a consequence, you can have it all. You can have everything you want. Just go and do everything, right? The reality is that's false. You can't have it all. You can't do it all. You got to pick. You got to choose. We can't be everything to everyone. Yeah. Otherwise, we'll end up feeling very depleted, very drained, and very unfulfilled. Pick a couple of things that are the most important. Again, I love that word priority. I mentioned this on Sunday in another meeting that I was in, that the word priorities shouldn't really exist in our language. It came into our vocabulary about 150 years ago. It should never have arrived. The word priority means the first or prior thing. You can't have multiple first things. Yeah. If I'm counting, I don't go 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's not how we count. There's only one thing that is first. That's the first thing. Yeah. So the first or prior thing is your priority. To have multiple priorities means that you've got too many things that you're trying to put first. Only one thing can go first. What is it? And that's the great challenge that most of us face. How do I establish that what that one thing is? It can only be one thing. What is it? Because we'll typically sit down and go, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to get good at that, I've got to master this, I've got to do all this other thing. And you end up with a big pile of stuff. And then you feel that overwhelm, that anxiety, that stress, and then you stop. Yeah. Or you go, okay, let's just pick the rubbish stuff first, the hard stuff, the things that I hate. Yeah. Then we can maybe get preoccupied with just doing all the uncomfortable stuff. What's the most important thing? What is the one thing that stands out above everything else that you should focus on today? And don't necessarily focus on this one thing has to be the one thing that I focus on for the month. Yeah, it might be, and this is what I've found as I've started to craft myself and work on my own improvement in this regard, is when I focus on the priority and strip it down to a singular versus a plural task, what really works well is when I focus it down, not just to the one thing, but to the one moment. In this moment right now, see how this starts to change things? Rather than saying this week, this month, this year, what do I have to focus on? Woof, all of this stuff. Yeah, oh my gosh, that's a lot. It's overwhelming. And what do we do as perfectionists? We go, if I can't make it perfect and wonderful, I won't do it at all. Yeah, because anything less than perfect is a failure, and I don't want to fail. So I stop. Yeah, let's strip it right back down and go, what is the one most important thing to do in this moment, today, or this morning? Do that. Yeah, when that moment has passed, now maybe you're in the afternoon. What is the one most important thing I need to do this afternoon? And then focus on that. When you strip it down that way, my goodness me, there is power in what starts to happen in your business. The sun is moving in my office. So I'm moving myself around my desk this morning. It is out and bright today and beaming through my windows. So the last point that I want to share, and this one I think is a great one. And again, it's a bit of a paradox because you go, oh, wait a second. Does that not fly in the face of what we should be thinking and feeling? It's this: stop trying so hard. Stop trying so hard. That sounds counterproductive. And I'm not suggesting that you go, sweet, okay, Ben just said, lower your standards. That's not what I said. That's not what I said. Stop getting so anxious about everything that's on your plate. Strip it down to the one thing right now that matters most. Focus on that. And then the key here is real simple. Be grateful for what you have while working towards what you want. I'll say that again. Be grateful for what you have while working towards what you want. That can make a huge shift, because the benefit of gratitude in the moment, along with what is the most important thing to do right now, what is one of the most important things I should strive to feel right now? Gratitude. When I have gratitude for what I have right now, it makes my journey towards what I want to become or achieve enjoyable, rewarding. It's an anchor to me. When things get tough and difficult and unpleasant, my sense of gratitude links to my purpose, links to what I value, and it keeps me anchored. So that when the winds of adversity blow, they don't uproot me and blow me away and leave me stranded somewhere else or getting blown off course or off track. My gratitude keeps me anchored on my path. So know where you want to go, work concretely towards that, but do that with a sense of gratitude for what you have. I think when we can get the balance of those two things in harmony, we can really start to have a fulfilling, meaningful, abundant life. So let me just reiterate then what those 7 points are that we talked about today. Just as a quick reminder. Starting point, do something, anything. Write down a list of 5 critical things that you think you need to be focused on right now. Pick one, do it now. Number 2, recognize that everything that you do has a cost. Be willing to pay it. The question that you want to ask is not what do I want, but what am I willing to suffer for? And the follow-up question to that, am I willing to suffer enough? 90% isn't enough. It's got to be 100%, because otherwise you do a lot of suffering and you don't get to enjoy the journey or get the results afterwards. Yeah, you want to pay the full price in order to get the full reward. Number 3, embrace the fact that no one really cares. Now, there's 2 ways to look at that. Like I said, no one cares, or great, no one cares. Yeah, it can really be invigorating and liberating when we embrace that principle. Number 4, focus more on habits and less on goals. Goals have their place, but they are realized and achieved as a consequence of our daily habits. Identify 1 or 2 daily habits to focus on and focus on them. Number 5, our HBM principle, figure out who you really are. Eliminate the self-delusion, replace it with self-awareness, and be mindful of who you really are, because how can I change into who I want to become if I don't know who I really am right now? Yeah, we've got to have a starting point as well as an end point. Yeah, but understand that. Number 6, focus on fewer things. Like I said, priorities should be priority. Identify one thing and then think of it in the context of what one thing should I do in this moment. Focus on the now. And then number 7, stop trying so hard. Get that wonderful balance of being grateful for what you have while you're striving for what you want. Get the balance of the 2. So, ladies and gents, I hope this has been helpful today. I hope this has been giving you some good tips to make some positive changes and recognize that if it's the month of February and you're wishing it was the month of January, don't worry about it. Today's a brand new day. Yes, we made our bed and we have to lie in it, but you know what? Every morning we can wake up and we can remake our bed. What a great principle that is, that every day we can start afresh and have a new day. What a blessing. So let's make today count. What one thing is the most important for me to do in this moment? And how can I do that with gratitude? What a great mantra. I love that. So thank you all very much. I hope this has been helpful, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. And of course, when this video comes out, be sure to share it with your team so that they can get on the right page along with you. Thanks very much and have a great week.